Hello, and welcome to the sixth in the series of Global Thinkers Forum podcasts on the coronavirus. I'm Professor Andrew McLeod. This episode, I want to speak with you about China. And is China the real enemy here? We have seen over the past week or so a rise and a strengthening in the anti-China rhetoric, not just in the United States, but in many Western countries, including my own Australia. Is this justified? And is it just the coronavirus that has increased people's anger about China, or is there something else at play? I believe there is something else at play, a much longer term and a much larger issue than just the coronavirus. Let me explain my viewpoint. For some time, I've been saying, in an overgeneralized way, that the period in history that we are traveling through in the globe today is the sixth great human transition. The five great human transitions before now have been Egyptian to Greek, Greek to Roman, Roman to Zoroastrian, Zoroastrian to Muslim, Muslim to Christian, and now we're moving from the Christian-dominated world to the Chinese-dominated world. What do I mean by that? Historically, when we look over the periods of great dominance of other cultures, we have what I call the agnostic power of trade. Regardless of whose culture or whose religion has dominated the globe, trade has gone on. And whether it is Egyptian to Greek, Greek to Roman, Roman to Zoroastrian, Zoroastrian to Muslim, Muslim to Christian, trade has continued. And for 1,000 of those years, trade centered around the historic Great Silk Road. When we think of the Silk Road, we think the first European to have written about the Silk Road was the Italian Marco Polo. The truth is, 1,000 years before Marco Polo, Emperor Augustus wrote about the Silk Road. For 1,000 years, global culture and trade was dominated by the culture and trade down the Silk Road. President Xi of China today is well known for his Belt and Road Initiative, which is to rebuild China's Silk Road and rebuild that cultural dominance over the agnostic power of trade. When we look at the world today, sometimes when we in the West look at Western cultural dominance of trade and geopolitics, we think that's the natural order of things. The truth is it's not. Since the birth of Jesus Christ, West has only dominated for about a quarter of the time. Maybe the West's time is up. And that's what I mean by the sixth great human transition. The West's global dominance from the end of the Muslim dominance around about the 14th century to now is coming to an end. China is rising. One could argue that China is not just rising, China is returning. For a lot of the period of time of what we call the Dark Ages, roughly 400 to 1400, when we, the West, said the world went backwards, we were actually wrong. The world didn't go backwards, just our culture did. The Islamic cultures rose, Chinese and Asian cultures rose. So what we are living through now today is a period where China was rising anyway. And what the coronavirus has done is it's radically accelerated that change. We see that China has economically come out of the coronavirus catastrophe sooner than others have. What we also see when we look at a historical lens is that through times of economic crisis, right-wing politics rises, nationalism rises, anti-globalist forces rise. That's been a historic trend right through all the cultures on the globe. So, is the anti-China rhetoric justified? Well, that depends on what your view is. If you think the rise of China is a bad thing anyway, then perhaps it is. If you think the rise of China is just an inevitable change in global dominance, as has happened through the millennium, then maybe you're not. Maybe one way to look at it is China is rising to global dominance, we can't fight it, therefore we need to adjust to it and prepare for the adjustment. Or maybe you think China's rise to global dominance is not inevitable and therefore we should fight it. They are two very different intellectual approaches to this. So even though we are seeing a rise in anti-China sentiment and anti-China rhetoric attached to the coronavirus, it's not really the coronavirus that's triggered this. Coronavirus is just accelerating the sixth great human transition, the shift from a Western dominance to a Chinese dominance. The question is whether that's inevitable, and the question is how are you going to adjust to the change if it takes place. I've been Andrew McLeod, and this is the sixth in the series of coronavirus podcasts for the Global Thinkers Forum.